Mangwana ni malelepo Fukenjani Dumela Kekwa Africa. Welcome to Africa. Good morning. The news and current affairs show that remains your portal into Africa's most potent stories. These are some of the stories we're looking at prior to Ari Hochad delivering the South Africa report. African cities unite to guide data center expansion. Niger formalizes exit from ICC over neo-colonialism claims. U.S. support brings Congo Ebola drug trials closer. Kenya seals $1.2 billion deal to expand Nairobi airport. IMF Africa chief sees strong potential despite Middle East risks. And we have to congratulate Bafana, South Africa's men's national football team, which managed a victory against Korea this very morning, South Korea being that team. 1-0 was the score as Maseko got it going for Bafana. And this is what it means historically. Bafana are through to the round of 32, their first time making it out of the group stages of a World Cup. Well done, Mzansi. Will certainly be supporting you all the way. Of course, there is that June 30 caveat. This is Africa Good Morning. Top story shortly.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative Sport Tourism.
Getting into our top stories. African cities are supporting an international initiative aimed at shaping the future of data centers amid growing concerns over the environmental effects of the fast-growing digital infrastructure sector. 40 cities around the world have signed a new agreement led by the C40 Cities Network to establish guidelines governing how data centers are planned, constructed, and operated. The initiative is intended to ensure that expanding digital infrastructure benefits local communities while reducing pressure on energy, water, and land resources. Casey Sutherland, managing director of C40 Cities, said mayors from different parts of the world have come together to tackle challenges linked to urban data centers. She said the objective is to create conditions that support sustainable growth in the sector while generating value for local economies, communities, and the environment. The move comes as data centers continue to multiply in cities due to increasing demand for cloud computing, artificial intelligence, as well as digital services. Niger has officially submitted its request to withdraw from the International Criminal Court 9 months after declaring its intention to leave the institution. In September last year, Niger joined Mali and Burkina Faso in issuing a joint statement rejecting the authority of the ICC and describing it as an instrument of neo-colonialist repression. The court confirmed that it received an instrument of withdrawal on 18 June, according to a statement seen by AFP, with the withdrawal set to take effect 1 year after notification. The ICC said Niger remains obligated to honor its commitments to the court until that date. The Hague-based court was established in 2002 to prosecute genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes and aggression. Its statement made no reference to Mali or Burkina Faso. When announcing their withdrawal plans, the three Sahel states stated that they intended to establish indigenous mechanisms for consolidating peace and justice. The United States has supplied doses of experimental antibody drug developed by MAP Biopharmaceutical for clinical trials aimed at combating the expanding Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. A Health Department spokesperson said the move marks a change from the previous position that doses would only be available for Americans considered at high risk after exposure. Following the dismantling of the U.S. Agency for International Development and reductions in regional aid, the United States is making modest contributions to support a response that the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says could become the worst Ebola outbreak yet without a strong intervention. The Department of Health and Human Services declined to specify how many doses would be supplied, stating that the drug is available for compassionate use in Congo and to advance clinical trials. Kenya's government has signed a 154.2 billion Kenyan shilling, the equivalent of 1.2 billion US dollar, agreement with China Road and Bridge Corporation to expand Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Transport Minister Davis Chichia said. The East African nation plans to almost triple the airport's annual passenger capacity to 22 million people from the current 7.5 million. The project was previously halted last year after Kenya cancelled a 2024 agreement with India's Adani Group following the indictment of its founder in the United States. Chichia said on his X account that the project scope includes the construction of a new terminal building and associated support facilities and modernization and upgrading of existing infrastructure and improvements to maintain its position as a regional aviation hub as countries including Ethiopia and Rwanda continue investing heavily in new airport developments to attract airlines and travelers. The International Monetary Fund's new African chief, Zein Zidane, says conflict in the Middle East is creating new economic pressures for sub-Saharan Africa, but maintains that the IMF remains committed to assisting countries facing difficulties. Since assuming leadership of the IMF's African department in May, Zidane had prioritized helping nations manage the impact of the current shocks. The fund has approved additional financing support for Burkina Faso, the Gambia, Sao Tome and Principe, while also speeding up approximately $200 million in funding for Ethiopia. Zidane cautioned that disruptions affecting trade, energy, supplies and fertilizer markets could continue for several months. Despite these concerns, he expressed optimism about the continent's prospects, stating that Africa has the potential to become the world's next major engine of growth if its economic capacity is fully realized. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, Ari Hohad will join us to deliver the South Africa report. However, I'm sure we've already delivered the best news for South Africa today, which is Bafana Bafana's victory over South Korea, helping them qualify into the round of 32 for the first time at the FIFA World Cup. Now, as we enter the South Africa report, the Western Cape government has outlined several interventions to improve the Cape Town container port operations, and the National Union of Metal Workers in South Africa entered day 10 of vehicle manufacturing strikes in Gqeberha. Here's Ari Hochart with more.
Firstly, related to current news in South Africa, it is related to the Port of Cape Town, and it is the Western Cape government that's concerned about the performance of the Port of Cape Town, and that is after the Port of Cape Town has been ranked last out of 400 global container ports, and that is a report done by the World Bank Container Ports Performance Index of 2025. And the Western Cape Agriculture and Economy and Tourism MEC, that's Mr. Ivan Meyer, he said that the Western Cape government has started 4 interventions, and that is in partnership with Transnet, and Transnet is running the Cape Town port. And so some of the changes is infrastructure interventions, and then also it is a wind study that's been done, and also take precaution in windy conditions. And the adverse weather is a big component of Cape Town, especially in the winter time. And it is specifically in June, July, August, it is sometimes difficult. So it is about planning, about the recovery when there's been disruptions as well, to understand how strong the wind will blow and how they can handle that. But there's better equipment also to handle the wind, and some of it is there's 10 short tension units that's been added, that's been recently done. And then also 4 hybrid straddle carriers that's also been added to the port, and that will also help. So the turnaround time for ships have been improved. So at the moment, it is not too bad. It is 74 hours. It was 103 hours in the year 2023-2024, and 83 hours in the year 2024-2025. So they're aiming to have that to about 58 hours of turnaround times by the end of 2026. So the harbour in Cape Town, they handle quite a few commercial vessels. In fact, they handle 1,860 vessels annually. They've got 42 operation ports. So it's important for fruit export also of South Africa, grapes and apples, and also citrus. And it is also lots of wine that's exported from the Cape Town port, valued at about 8.5 billion South African rand, and also fish exports and also luxury yachts. So lots of exports from the city of Cape Town. So that's an important part of the economy in Cape Town. For more current news, we go to the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, and they've been striking for 9 days in the Gqeberha, the Eastern Cape area, and they've called the Chinese car manufacturers to correct hour rates. So it is a challenge at the moment in the vehicle manufacturing. The vehicle manufacturing is quite a component of the economy in South Africa. It adds up to about 5% of GDP, and it's about 150 billion South African rand that's annually generated through export value. And so it is the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa that say that there's about 130,000 workers that's directly or indirectly affected in the industry. So NUMSA say that they want spray painters and also welders to be looked after better. That is hourly rates. At the moment, it is roughly about 48 Rand an hour. They say spray painters need to earn 84 Rand an hour, and welders need to earn about 163 Rand an hour, and that is what they ask, and that is why they're on strike at the moment. In closing, also related to the storms that hit the Western Cape and the Southern Cape in May, it is 70% of the roads have been reopened, as according to reports, and but it's still the Swartberg Pass that is closed. Also, the Meidenspoort Pass is also closed for reconstruction, and that will cost about 421 million South African rand, and will take 26 months to complete. And it is also about 98% electricity has been restored in those affected areas. And in May, it cost the economy about 5.2 billion South African rand in damages, specifically to the agriculture sector. So that is current news in South Africa.
All right, thank you very much, Adi. Before I introduce your sport, we're going to recap again on what happened this morning at the FIFA World Cup. South Africa's Bafana managing a 1-0 victory against the Korea Republic, which means that now they have made it into the round of 32. And guess what? Their next game is on Sunday, and Bafana will be facing Canada. I like their chances. However, in the rest of your sport news, Adi, you're talking about the women's Proteas cricket team preparing for their last 2 remaining group games in the T20 World Cup in England, as well as MMA fighter Dricus du Plessis, who will be in action again next month.
In sport news in South Africa, there's lots of focus on the T20 Women's World Cup that's been played in England and in Wales, and South Africa contending to hopefully qualify for the semi-finals. They've played 3 games already, the women's team of South Africa. They've lost the first one against Australia, but then with good wins against Pakistan and a very good win against India, the latest game that they've played. They've got 2 more games in the group phases, and that will be against the Netherlands. So that will be on Thursday. That will be 7:30 p.m. Namibian time. That game will start, and then the last game will be on this coming Sunday. They will play against Bangladesh, and that game will start at 11:30 in the morning. That is Namibian time. So South African women's team hope to win both those games to qualify for the semi-finals. It will also depend on the game on Sunday against Australia and India. If India win that game, it could be that 3 teams have only lost 1 game, and then it will be on the average run rate that will come into play. So South Africa need to win both against Netherlands and Bangladesh to make sure that they can qualify for the semi-finals. And also lately the South African team have done well. It is Marizanne Cup, the all-rounder that's been playing well. She did very well against India. Then also it is Tasman Brits that scored some runs against India, and also the captain Laura Wolfhard, always a very key player for the South African women's team. Then also MMA boxing news, or it is also UFC fighter news. It is Dricus du Plessis of South Africa that will make a comeback again after losing his middleweight title that he lost last year against Khamzat Chimaev, and he will fight now in July. He will fight on the 18th of July. He will fight against Kamura Usman. He is from Nigeria, and that fight will be in Oklahoma City at the Paycon Center. So hopefully for Dricus du Plessis, the comeback fight will be successful and he can contend again for that middleweight title. That is sport news in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Ari. Now, when I was at the Cape last year, I had the pleasure of visiting Worcester, which is a very lovely scenic place, and I understand the Houdini Spa doesn't disappoint.
In entertainment news in South Africa, we go to Worcester, and Worcester is about 112 kilometers from Cape Town. Very popular for tourists, and there's one big attraction in Worcester, or close to Worcester, and that's specifically in the winter time. That is the Houdini Spa. The Houdini Spa is popular because of one of the areas that it's popular for is the heated indoor swimming pool. And so when it's colder in winter time in South Africa or in Cape Town, it's a very popular place to visit. But when it's a warmer day, there's also cold outside swimming pools that will also have nice slides for the kids and the parents. And so it's a beautiful place to visit, surrounded by mountains of the Boland and also vineyards. And you can also play putt-putt, and there's a big hiking trails as well in that area. So it's a beautiful area to visit. So at the Houdini Spa, there's also a great restaurant, and there's a convenience store, and also there's a beauty salon that can also be visited. And then accommodation wise, it's known for the self catering, and it is there's a variety of options as well, and there's also a fully equipped campsite that is also available at Houdini Spa. There's also lots of options to visit around Houdini Spa, so you can use it as a place to stay. Then go to some of the award-winning vineyards just around the corner in the Slanghoek Valley, and it is one of them is the Batsberg Estate. Batsberg Estate is less than a kilometer away from Houdini Spa. They've got award-winning wines, brilliant Merlot wine, red wine, and also award-winning Chardonnay that is oak barrel fermented, and then well known for the wintertime also for the Hanepoort Jerepico. So the 2024 Hanepoort Jerepico, also award-winning and very popular. So also after visiting vineyards, you can also go and play some golf, and they've got the 18-hole golf course at Worcester. Worcester, and it is established already in 1895, 18-hole golf course, and it is one of South Africa's championship golf courses. It rates in the top 100 golf courses in South Africa. So that is Worcester for entertainment to visit, and that is entertainment news in South Africa.
We close off our show with more South African news, this time swinging back to economic news. South African agricultural economist Wandile Sihlobo, in a video shared on his X page, says the reported agreement between the United States and Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz offers hope for easing fertilizer and fuel prices ahead of South Africa's 2026-27 summer crop season, which begins in mid-October. Here is Wandile Sihlobo, as we say, Sweraja Kanaka.
The news that Iran and the US have reached a deal and the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened and the ceasefire will be extended permanently is a positive development. For us in South Africa's agriculture, we have actually been seeing the shocks of this war since the start of it. Fertilizer prices have been rising, fuel prices have been rising, and it has also disrupted trade within that region. We are now at a stage in South African agriculture where we will start planting for the 2026-27 production season from mid-October. And we're already very worried about the higher fertilizer prices. Since the start of this war, fertilizer have been increasing. And in fact, if you look at the fertilizer prices now, they are up by roughly 50% from a year ago. Now, if you consider the input costs of a farmer in South Africa, those particularly that are in grains, oilseeds, as well as sugarcane, fertilizer typically accounts for anywhere between 20 to 35% of their input cost. So having that increasing put a lot of strain on the farmers. Fuel also accounts for a notable share, anywhere between 10 to 15% of their overall input cost, and fuel prices have also increased notable since the start of that war. Now, with the news of a peace deal and that the Strait of Hormuz will be reopening, we hope then that will bring some easing on these prices of these products, fertilizer as well as fuel, and that will support the South African agricultural sector ahead of the start of the 2026-27 production season. But that region of the Middle East is not only important for us in terms of inputs, but as agriculture, we also export to that region. If you look at the Middle East now overall, not only just the countries that were affected by the war, that region accounts for about 8% of South Africa's agricultural exports. That in 2025 was around 1.3 billion US dollars of products. It's a range of fruits, red meat, and some grain that we export in that region. And I think that over time, as the logistics normalizes, that will help us on making sure that we are again back into exporting in that particular region. But I think for the near to medium term, the easing on the input costs, which we hope that will follow now, is something that anyone who's in the South African farming sector will be welcoming, because the season ahead has its own challenges. It was the higher input costs, but also the likelihood of an El Nino, which may bring below normal rainfall. So at least some easing of the pressure from one factor, which is the input cost, will certainly make a difference for the farmers.